Hare Krishna. I hope all of you can see me and hear my screen. Sorry.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Welcome everybody to our ongoing discussion on the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita titled Transcendental Knowledge. I believe last time we completed through verse number 33, is that right? O chastiser of enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. Does anyone recall? I believe we completed this, but I just wanted to check.
Yes, we completed. Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to recall. And we had a class last Saturday, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, because I was looking at my recorded videos and it seems last week's video, I'm not able to find it. And I believe I was recording. Did anyone notice if I was recording or not?
Yes, Prabhuji. Actually, I see this in my in the meeting history. I can see that it was recorded. That it also shows the link. I don't know if I can try to get it. Let me try.
Because when I go to web stream, it shows me the last video from 21st of August.
I'm just pasting it in the chat, Prabhu. The link to the recording.
Oh, okay. Let me see. I just clicked on it. Just confirm that and we'll begin. So this is yes. Okay. Got it. So looks like it was recorded. For some reason, maybe it's not refreshed on my content. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Okay. So we'll continue today with verse number 34. It's a very important verse. This verse is about Guru Tattva. There is a lot of misunderstanding, confusion, doubts about this important subject matter. So I wish to spend enough time on this verse. Maybe you might just talk about this verse the entire class. I don't know. We'll see. But so far in the discussion, Krishna has talked about different kind of sacrifices, and he goes on to elaborate that the purpose of the sacrifice is to come to the platform of transcendental knowledge, because a work or a sacrifice which is performed with proper understanding is better than simply performing a sacrifice of material possessions, but without understanding of what is the purpose, who is the beneficiary, and the other details. So ultimately, it's a transcendental knowledge which can bring about liberation, and eventually one has to come to that platform of transcendental knowledge. In Karma Yoga, by practice of Karma Yoga, one comes eventually to that platform of knowledge. By Karma Yoga, one cultivates Jnana and Vairagya, renunciation and knowledge. So how do we cultivate this knowledge, right? So the next question now Krishna introduces another concept, which is in verse number 34. Let's read that and then we'll comment on that. Verse number 34, chapter 4. Tatvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya updekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Rishi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: just try to understand the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. There's a couple of concepts over here. Krishna is asking Arjuna to approach a spiritual master, and how. Now if somebody says you approach, how one should approach. So pranipatena here refers to approaching a spiritual master. Well, in order to approach one first of all has to do some service, sevaya. And after doing service, one inquires submissively. So there are two aspects in which one should approach a spiritual master. And here the word uses updekshanti, not upades. Updes means, generally in many Indian languages, we have the word upades. That means, giving instructions. But updekshanti is slightly different. So you have the idea of siksha and diksha. So we'll talk about that. But let's read the purport, right? So purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord Himself. So, in any domain of life, right, if we have to learn something, we have to approach someone who knows it. Just like if somebody wants to become a surgeon, a medical surgeon who performs surgery, and there are different kinds of surgeries in different parts of the body, and there are surgeons who specialize in the surgery of that particular organ, right? So there are heart bypass surgery specialists. There are neurosurgeons, which is the most complicated of all surgeries. Heart surgery is pretty complicated as well. And no one can become a surgeon by reading a book. Generally, they start, after going through in sufficient medical study, then they would start as an apprentice. That means they would assist a surgeon who is already an expert, and they would join the surgeon during those medical operations. First, maybe they might just observe; they don't do anything, or they might assist. They might bring a scalpel or other tools, and they monitor, and then they're watching and learning. And eventually, the surgeon would let the apprentice, start owning maybe small minor aspects of surgery, assist him and allow him to operate. And then slowly, by observing and learning and, by their hands-on, eventually, that individual can begin to learn surgery and finally become a good surgeon. Or talk about learning how to fly an airplane, right? Initially, one starts with very small airplane, the Cessna aircrafts, and generally the instructor is with there. The instructor has the main control, but lets the trainee pilot operate some basic controls. And then eventually they move on to a larger aircraft that also they go and learn how to fly in a simulator. Then they join as a first officer. The first officer is simply an assistant, and in the cockpit there is the the pilot, and then there is the first officer. First officer generally assists the pilot and observes and watches him. And every now and then he might let the first officer fly during certain phases and take control of the aircraft. And eventually then he might give the opportunity to take off, land. And in this way, one learns. One cannot learn simply by reading a book. Similarly, spiritual life is also very difficult. And therefore, Krishna is advising Arjuna to approach a bona fide spiritual master. Of course, Krishna himself is the original spiritual master. And in humility, Krishna is not asking Arjuna to say, you approach me. He's saying, okay, you go and approach a spiritual master. And that also leads to a very important point, that choosing a spiritual master, of course, has to be based on proper understanding of who the spiritual master is, what his qualities are, which are all described in the scriptures. And then, then one can approach a bona fide spiritual master, genuine one. Otherwise, how would we know? Just like if somebody is going to buy a gold and cannot differentiate between gold and brass, or gold and some other alloy, pure gold and some other alloy which is a mixture of gold and with some other alloy which is impure, then one will be cheated. So the basic understanding of obviously is needed. But even with that understanding, one himself has to feel comfortable whom one should approach, right? It cannot be forced upon. Everyone has makes a personal connection with with one's teacher. And that's why here Krishna is not advising Arjuna, is saying, you approach me. Anyway, Arjuna has approached him, right? In the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is saying that, I'm feeling a lot of pain and anxiety. The Gandiva bow is slipping from my hand. And in this condition, Krishna, I'm approaching you to instruct me in knowledge, right? So Arjuna has already approached Krishna. But here Krishna, is generically saying, why one should approach a spiritual master. And how one should approach, right? One should approach first render service, then inquire submissively, not in a challenging way. Just like, if you want to learn something from someone, you cannot be nasty towards that person. That person should be, why should that person spend time and energy in teaching? That's why guru, just like a disciple checks the qualification of the guru, is this person worth approaching? Is he self-realized, or is he just another bogus guru who is trying to cheat? In this way, the guru is also interested in knowing, is the person sincere? The disciple who is approaching me, is that disciple sincere? Or is the disciple interested in approaching for ulterior motives? Just like people become guru for ulterior motives, right? Maybe they want name, fame, prestige, want to become very famous. Oh, someone such and such person is so learned, he has thousands of disciples. Want to enjoy all the prestige that comes with that position. Similarly, there are disciples who also are not sincere. They are wanting to accept initiation from a guru who is famous. So then the disciple can also become famous. Oh, I am a disciple of such and such guru. I have taken this spiritual path. People will respect. Oh, look at this gentleman, is so nice. He's successful, but still he has taken to spirituality. And whose disciple is he? Is he? Well, he is a disciple of such and such guru. Oh, that guru is so famous. He has so many disciples. In this way, or they might think, I have this particular skills, and by the skills, I can become a prominent disciple of this guru. So this guru might have 10,000 disciples, but I am one of the most prominent disciples, and I'll be respected by my God brothers and God sisters. And I will get this position. And maybe they not join in this way. They might take initiation for sometimes, for good reasons or genuine reasons, but then they might get influenced by the position or fame that one gets it. So in this way, both the disciples and the guru need to be sincere. Generally what happens is the guru is not sincere and disciples are not. So disciples who are not sincere, they are, by the Paramatma, inspires such individuals to take initiation from gurus who are also not sincere, right? So then it becomes a business of the cheaters and the cheated. We cannot be cheated unless we want to be cheated. If we do shortcuts and we have ulterior motives, and that's what we get. We don't get genuine spiritual realization. So here Krishna is advising Arjuna to approach a bona fide spiritual master. So one inquires, first of all, finds out who a bona fide spiritual master is, approaches such a spiritual master, serves sincerely. And then by that service, a genuine spiritual master will see, this disciple is sincere. Of course, one can also fake that, but that I want to do service just to impress the spiritual master and get initiation in this way. But if the spiritual master is bona fide, that spiritual master can sense what is the motives by which this person is approaching. Is this person approaching and doing service for ulterior motives or for genuine realization? And when the spiritual master is pleased, then the disciple begins to submissive spiritual inquiry. He asks different questions about life. What's the purpose of life? Who we are? What is the goal? How to achieve the goal? And in this way, spiritual inquiry begins by submission. One can ask, if one asks in a challenging fashion, I don't accept this. Why is it that? What is the proof there is a soul? What is the proof there is Krishna? Right? Of course, you can ask for proof. There is nothing wrong in asking for proof. But what tone is one asking in? Right? If a person is already committed atheist and is just challenging someone, then that does not constitute submissive inquiry. Submissive inquiry means asking with a genuine intention to understand what the truth is. So that constitutes genuine inquiry, not in a challenging fashion. Right? So, yeah. So when the spiritual master is satisfied, then he can accept a disciple. Many instances in our Gaudiya Sampradaya where, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, he was such a learned scholar, being a son of empowered Acharya Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he himself being an empowered Acharya. He's one of the Manjaris in the spiritual world. He set an example that he himself being a scholar, he approached for initiation Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, who by material calculation was an illiterate, even could not read. Right? And here is a scholar approaching such a great personality, though by material calculation might not be literate. And he had to render significant service. Earlier, Gaur Kishore Babaji did not accept him. He says, you're such a scholar, why you need me? So he performed very menial service to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. And he says, my life will be waste if I don't get initiation from you. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji was such a personality. You would hardly see him, eating or sleeping, passing stool or urine, a completely transcendental platform. And he avoided most worldly people. Most people in this world are materialistic, so avoided all company. We just live in solitude and simply chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And in order to avoid people, he used to be, sometimes be, isolate himself in latrines, so no one comes and bothers him. And so only genuine person like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was the only disciple of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. He did not accept anyone as his disciple because he sensed that, most people of this world, they are not sincere. So this is a standard, that is set, very high standard. So what is Upadeksh? Upadesh and Upadekshanti. So Upadesh is Siksha. I impart instructions. But when the disciple, say Guru imparts instructions, but when the disciple surrenders to that instruction, then it becomes Diksha. Before that it is Siksha. Siksha is instructions, and Siksha is for all the masses. Like if you go to a temple or a matha, the Guru or the instructor, the teacher is giving spiritual instructions, and that is available to all general public. So that is Siksha. That's why it's called Upadesh. But out of those hundreds of people who might be in the audience, who are getting instructions, some of them might be sincere enough to take up the process, and they approach the spiritual master and submit to him, and they commit to following those instructions. Hundreds of people are listening to the instructions. Some of them are not even paying attention. Some of them are listening, but then they're evaluating which one should evaluate. But then they're like, okay, whatever, it's not for me. I don't want to surrender to it. But those who surrender, that process of surrendering to the spiritual instructions under the guidance of a spiritual master, and spiritual master in this way accepting the disciple and willing to instruct him, then it becomes Diksha. And so here Krishna is using the word Upadekshanti, is referring to the process of initiation or Diksha, that is basically asking Arjuna to take initiation from such a spiritual master. And the essence of initiation is not the process. The process of, or the ceremony of initiation and the actual initiation are two different things. One can sit in a ceremony of initiation in which one gets a new spiritual name and get new beats to chant on, and one is accepted or recognized actually as a disciple of such and such guru. That is the ceremony of initiation. But the ceremony of initiation, if it is not accompanied by real initiation, that means a disciple really surrenders to the instruction of a guru, then it's simply a ceremony, right? So Dikha Kale Bhakta Kare Atma Samarpan. At the time of initiation, a disciple surrenders unto the instructions and surrenders unto the spiritual master himself. Now, for many people, unless someone is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur of that caliber, for most people, the process or the ceremony of initiation and the actual initiation might not happen at the same time. And sometimes spiritual masters are kind, well, this person is not really ready, but it's not likely that he would ever be ready. Okay, let me at least, but there is some sincerity in this person. He's at least, submitting to the process. He's chanting 16 rounds every day. He's following the 4 regulative principles. He's sincerely trying to. But he's not fully surrendered. The guru might still give initiation to such a disciple with the hope that after he formally takes the initiation, he's more committed. Now he maybe might feel obligation. No, I have taken initiation, so I cannot break my vow. And he might become more serious, which that person might not become serious otherwise. And so what might happen, one goes through the ceremony of initiation first, and then actual initiation might happen at a later point in life. But the actual initiation is what ultimately matters. Simply sitting in a ceremony does not do any good. So that's another distinction that one must understand, right? So upadekshanti te jnanam jnanina tattvadarshina. So here, no one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following the principle of disciplic succession. That's another point. That guru, one of the qualification of the guru, there are many qualifications. The basic qualification is guru is self-realized, is well versed in Vedic scriptures. Not only is well versed, he is able to convince the disciple or able to impart knowledge to the disciple in the conclusions of those Vedic scriptures. And that understanding or realization should come in a disciplic succession, because scriptures are also subject to interpretation, and anyone can interpret it in incorrect way, but that parampara has no value, right? But the parampara which comes in the line of self-realized spiritual masters, where the essence of the parampara remains intact, it is not diluted, it is not perverted, it is not contaminated, then the real essence is communicated. So one should approach a spiritual master in such a disciplic succession. Right in the beginning of the chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna that in this knowledge earlier was spoken by me to Vivaswan, the sun god. But in due course of time, this knowledge was lost. And when this knowledge was lost, that means the parampara got adulterated, or got the portions of it which were lost or misinterpreted, and so now Krishna is re-establishing the parampara, right? So in this way, one should take initiation in a parampara which is pure, is conveying the original message, and the spiritual master is also self-realized. The parampara might be genuine, but a spiritual master is bogus, then also it does not help. So the Lord is the original spiritual master, right? He's the Adi Guru. And the person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. Just like the Gaudiya Sampradaya, it is called Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. So the original disciple is Brahma, but Brahma took instructions from Krishna. And then there is a line of spiritual masters in that parampara, including Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, and then most recently Madhvacharya, right? Again in Kali Yuga, Madhva appeared in South India. And from Madhva, there is another sub-branch that appeared, in which finally Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, who is Krishna himself, in the mood and complexion of Radharani. And in this disciplic succession, we have Srila Prabhupada, who is presenting us this knowledge, right? So ultimately, it's coming from the Lord through a chain of series of spiritual masters who are self-realized. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of foolish pretenders, right? Just like in the West, it's a industrial technology-based civilization, and we have different versions of the gadgets which are released every so often, like every year, new version of iPhones released. So in sometimes in places like India, you have so many new versions of gurus or gods. They manufacture their own philosophy, but then such a process, which is manufactured, cannot bring about any good, right? It attracts only foolish people who want to be cheated, who are looking for something cheap, right? So the real dharma or the real knowledge is not manufactured. Generally, if you go to in the West, the really, in their whole liberal mindset, they want to promote that everyone should have a good understanding of different faith, and they have these world religion classes. And I used to get invitation to go to colleges and speak about it. I did that in the past. I get that sometimes as well. But so a world religion class in which they give some basics about religion, and then they learn about different faiths of the world. Because especially here in America, it's a multicultural society, and they want to promote an understanding of different religions so that there is no conflict, or people might develop sometimes ill feelings toward other religions. So in that spirit, it is good. But the basic premise of even the intention is good. The basic understanding, even in secular society where religion is approved and promoted, right? And they are liberal, well, like, hey, you're free to practice any religion, right? Right to liberty, freedom, right to speech, right to practice one faith is enshrined in the constitution of many Western democracies. But the understanding, even the such governments, is that, well, ultimately religion is man-made. It is manufactured by men. But if the religions who promote good values which uplift the humanity, and in this way they help the humanity with good moral values, then it's easy to govern such a society. And so we accept all religions who promote such moral values, right? And in this way, they don't accept that, well, actual religion is not manufactured. Now, there are religions which are manufactured as well, but that doesn't mean all religions are like that. And if the idea is to promote morality, then one does not even need a theistic religion. Buddhism, Jainism, these are atheistic religions. They don't accept the idea of God, but they when it comes to morality, they have very high moral values, ahimsa, which the Jains they still follow to a significant extent. Buddhism, it is mostly lost, where namesake, they're all Buddhists, but they all eat meat and beef, and even their chief Dalai Lama is not a vegetarian. I mean, there's nothing left in Buddhism if one does not even practice the basic tenets of non-violence. So anyway, one doesn't, if moral values are promoted even by atheistic traditions. So the purpose of religion is not to simply promote morality, so that might be an outcome of it. But the purpose of religion is to provide the highest benediction that one can achieve, which is a love for God. The path of bhakti ultimately is fully manifested in some of the Vaishnava traditions of India. They are to some extent present in some of the Abrahamic traditions, but they are not fully manifested as they are in Vaishnava traditions. And even among Vaishnava tradition, in the Gaudiya lineage, we find that it's fully manifested because it can elevate one to the highest love for Godhead in the mood of separation. So Bhagavatam says that, very famous verse, 6.3.19, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam na vai vidu rishayo na pi devah ashura manushya kutonu vidyadhar charanade. It says that this dharma is established by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And it is difficult to understand for even demigods, what to speak about lesser demigods like Vidyadhar, Charanas, or demons, asuras, or even human beings. So it is not a manufactured religion. So the Bhagavad Dharma comes from Krishna himself. It is not that somebody concocted it. The many religions which are concocted, it's not one of them. Like Akbar, he started a religion called Din-e-Ilahi. He took some tenets from the Hindu faith, what he called Hindu faith, some Muslim faith, and maybe he had good intentions, but so dharma is not something that can be manufactured in that fashion. Or when it comes to America, the only religion of American origin in true sense is the Mormon religion, the other Protestant faiths, they were already established in the Europe, and the pilgrims just came to America, and they are still practicing the Protestant faith. Of course, there are many other sects that appeared within the Protestant faith, but if you talk about a what do you call it, truly American faith, which was manufactured, is the Mormon faith, right? So they have significant presence in Salt Lake City. You see them around many times, but I mean they have good faith, practices in the sense, in some sense they might not have a very advanced philosophy. They're nice people. They're always willing to help, and inimical to other faiths, right? Anyway, so the real dharma is coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot lead to one right path. That's another thing. Mental speculation and dry arguments. So sometimes people, they question, well, why we need a guru? I can simply read a book, or I can understand things by logic, or I might approach a philosopher who has a philosophy, right? Why I need a dharma. There are so many philosophers. They also try to solve the different mysteries of life, and they elaborate. Like, look at the Greeks, thousands of years ago. You have Socrates, the Plato. You had Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. So many other Greek philosophers. They have done inquiry into the realities of life, the purpose of life. So you can just pursue that. In this way, different people have different ideas. Why have to approach a bona fide spiritual master or a spiritual? They don't even have an idea of what is bona fide. So in Mahabharata, we come across this verse which kind of elaborates on 4 kind of spiritual aspirants, those who are not spiritual aspirants, but 4 kind of processes. And these 4 processes, they are the 4, they relate to the 4 coverings of the body, which is senses, mind, intelligence, and ego. And you can kind of relate to, I'll elaborate on it, but you can see one is on a sensual platform, one is on a mental platform, one is on an intellectual platform. And that is finally one that transcends the false ego. So it says basically that tarko apratistho srutayo vibhinna naso rishi yasya matah na bhinnam dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajanayena gata sapantha. It says that tarko apratistho. Apratistho means something that cannot be established. Pratistha means established. Apratistha, that is not established. So what cannot be established? Truth cannot be established. How can truth cannot be established? By tarako. Tarka means tarka vitarka, logic, arguments. So by different logical arguments, one cannot establish the truth. Because sometimes what happens in all these logicians, they get into debate, right? And these debates are mostly in the sensual platform. The purpose of the debates, mostly is not to find the truth. The logicians, they are just interested in providing a better logic by which they can defeat the other person. They can establish that, no, I am the winner. And the idea, in this way, they are going to just satisfy their senses, right? That, I am a better logician and I can defeat the other person. So it is on a sensual level. One cannot come to the truth. It's only a matter of time that an even better logician will come and defeat the prior logic. And then there would be some other logician that would come. Right? There's always, no matter how good logicians we are, there's always someone who is better than us. It's a matter of time. A better logician will come, will provide a better logic, and will defeat the logic. So in this way, there's no end to it. There are many jokes about it, and the one about chimney. I don't know, if 2 men go inside a chimney, and then one's face is turned black, another is not. And there are a series of questions they ask each other, not series of questions to each other, but to the audience. So you tell me which one. I'm trying. I cannot recall all the series of questions, but you have to find out, well, which one's face is blackened and one's is not blackened. I'll try to find it out. That was pretty interesting. How through a series of questions, each of them provide a logic, and the other person kind of outsmarts him. There are many other scenarios. Well, the idea of essentially that is conveyed is that there's always a better logician who can defeat his predecessor, right? So by logical argument, one cannot come to the truth. So tarko pratishto srutayo vibhinna. Shruti are the different scriptures, Vedic scriptures or the scriptures. Srutayo vibhinna, and there is a lot of variety. And sometimes when you read too many scriptures, you'll come across apparently contradictory statements. But we cannot resolve those contradictions. Well, in one scripture it says this, other scripture it says that. And then this and that might be in direct contradiction with each other. And then it just creates more confusion. Well, what is the truth? You approach the scriptures to resolve your problems and find the truth. But then, one can end up with more confusion. So, and the Shrutis, they also have different Shruti phals. You say if you read such and such scripture, or you follow such and such rituals which are described in the scriptures, you will get such and such benefit, right? Janma, Aishwarya, Shruta, Shri. And these different benedictions sometimes are contradictory because they appears contradictory because they are trying to elevate the conditioned living entity to a higher platform through different paths. But a novice does not understand what are the different paths, right? Which path is suitable for me? They might think they're all same. And so it might appear contradictory, right? And so Shrutis, people attracted by the Shruti phals and the Shrutis are on a mental platform in the sense that, they get, their mind becomes surcharged with all the benefits that they might get from these different processes. And by following the desires of the mind, even if they approach scriptures, they might be bewildered. So again, truth cannot be established by independent study of scriptures. That doesn't mean scriptural study is not recommended. One has to, again, learn under the direction of a spiritual master. Srutayo vibhinna na aso rishi yashya matana bhinnam. It says one cannot be considered as a rishi unless one presents a position or a philosophical position which is unique, which is different from every other rishi. Just like you cannot become a PhD or a doctor of philosophy until you provide something which is very unique research in that particular field. Similarly, the philosophers are like that. Why there are so many philosophers? Each philosopher has a different philosophy. Right? And they cannot be recognized as a philosopher unless they present a philosophy that is different from everyone else. So rishis literally means muni, right? The rishi is the muni. They are the thinkers, the ancient philosophers. They might have their own philosophy. They might get inspiration from scriptures, but then they, might be some innovation, or they innovate and they come up with different ideas so that they can. Otherwise, there is no individuality in their philosophical presentation. And in this way, people might be attracted, but then, all philosophers, they will have a different opinion. And so in this way also one cannot come to the platform of truth. Now this process is at the level of intellect, right? Because it requires some intelligence to come up with, a unique philosophical proposition. But with everyone being unique, there's no reconciliation. Each of them might have different opinion. Well, then how can one find truth? Well, one can find truth by approaching or following in the footsteps of self-realized soul. Mahajana yena gata sapantha. pantha, the path. You follow the path that the Mahajans took. So who are the Mahajans? The Mahajans are the self-realized souls. Of course, the Srimad Bhagavatam describes the 12 most famous Mahajans, but then there are many other Mahajans who are not described in Srimad Bhagavatam, or they are self-realized souls. So, we are Acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, Saraswati Thakur, and they are also Mahajans because they are following in the footsteps of those Mahajans described in Bhagavatam. So what are the 12 Mahajans described in Srimad Bhagavatam? What is it? Swayambhu, Narada Shambhu, Kumaro Kapilo Manu, Pralado Janako Bhishmo, Balir Vaiyasaki Vayam. So Swayambhu is Brahma himself, Narada Muni, Shambhu is Lord Shiva, what is Swayambhu, Narada, Shambhu, Kumaro Kapilo Manu. So Kumar, the 4 Kumaras, the mental sons, Manas Putra of Brahma, Kumaro Kapila Dev, who presented Sankhya philosophy, the son of Devhuti, Manu, the father of mankind, Prahlad Maharaj, son of Hiranyakashipu, it's not known as, that's not, generally you would say disciple or devotee of Lord Narasimha. Prahlad, Janak Maharaj is father of Sita Devi, Bhishma Pitama, Bali Maharaj is the grandson of Prahlad. So both Prahlad and Bali, they appeared in the dynasty of the demons, Asuras, but still they are pure devotees. They follow their path and achieves perfection. Bali Vaiyasaki is Sukadeva Goswami, and then Vayam is this is Yamraj speaking, and says, I myself is one of the 12. am one of the 12 Mahajans. So here the same verse Srila Prabhupada is translating in English. So he says Tarko Apratishto. That means mental speculation, dry arguments, one cannot lead to the right path. Srutayo Vibhinna. By independent study of the books of knowledge, one cannot progress in spiritual life. Right? So see, independent study. It's not the study of scripture is not recommended. Independent study means without the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. So one has to approach a bona fide spiritual master, which is Mahajan. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender. And one should serve a spiritual master like a menial servant without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado yasya prasadan nagati kutopi. And spiritual master is satisfied. The Lord is satisfied. But how is it that? So when we talk about Godhead, Godhead comprises of 5 principles. Pancha Tattva. So the first principle is the what's the right term I'm looking for? The predominating deity, right? The energetic. So Lord himself, Krishna himself, is the prime personality, the primeval personality. He is the possessor and the enjoyer of all energies, all material, all spiritual energies, they all emanate from him. And then one expansion of Krishna is the Radharani, who is the embodiment of all potencies or all energies, but primarily the pleasure-giving potency, Ladini Shakti. So then the energy is feminine and the energetic is masculine. So the Purusha is the enjoyer of Prakriti, right? The male is the enjoyer of the female. And so just like if I say I'm energetic, there's no meaning to that sentence if I don't have energy, right? As soon as you talk about energetic, the energy should be possessed by the energetic. The energy cannot reside in vacuum. If you say an object has a potential energy or kinetic energy, that means the energy is possessed by the object. Its energy does not reside in vacuum. Similarly, as soon as you talk about energy, there should be energetic, right? So there is a feminine aspect. So there are 2 principles we talked about, right? The masculine, feminine. Then the other principle, the other expansion of Krishna is Balram, and Balram is the original spiritual master. So this principle describes the aspect of the Lord by which Krishna wants to deliver the conditioned souls who are trying to enjoy independently of Krishna, how to bring them back to the spiritual platform. That function is done by the Guru. So the Guru is a functional incarnation of Krishna, right? And the Adi Guru is Lord Balram, is the original Guru of all living entities. And so spiritual master is the third principle. And the fourth principle is Mahavishnu, or who is the source of all different incarnations that appear in this material world. And then the fifth is the pure devotee like Yashoda Maiya, Nanda Maharaj, or the Gopas, or the queens of Dwarka. They are never fallible, they never fall down. So when you say we have to worship God, God is not, the idea of Godhead is incomplete unless all these five principles are taken into account, right? Just like if you say, if you want to please someone, you have to, that someone is not just an individual, that someone, maybe your colleague or your boss, the identity of that individual is in relation to his entire family, right? In a family, you would have a wife, children, parents. And so, when one exhibits love and compassion and, very warm feelings towards the family, then the person himself is pleased, right? If we are nice to that individual, but we are nasty towards their family members, the person's not going to like. Or if we are cold towards them, then the person is not happy. Just like in Eastern culture, if you go to someone's home and you say nice things about someone's children, and you talk with them, and oh, you're such and such nice boy or a girl, wow, you know how to play music, or you're good in such and such thing, and you talk to him, that children, then the parents, they feel happy. Oh, this person is appreciating my children. Right? So in this way, we can reach the heart of that individual through the heart of their family members. Or in the Western culture, when they, the culture to, this culture to keep dogs. Right? So the pet dogs are like almost like their family members. And anytime, you meet someone, they would pet the dog, right? And they would play with the dog, and then the owner of the dog will feel, oh, this person is so nice, right? So in this way, we cannot approach Godhead if we really don't know who Godhead is. Krishna is never shown individually in any pictures or even any description in the scriptures. The activities of Krishna are always in relationship to his conjugal lovers, his devotees in the mood of parental affection or in mood of friendship, right? But you will always find description of Balram, Radharani, his devotees, different incarnations, and in this way Godhead is complete. So satisfaction of self-realized spiritual master means Krishna itself is satisfied. Just like all the example that I gave, when the family members are pleased, then the person who is the head of the family is also pleased. So in this way, by pleasing the spiritual master, one makes spiritual progress, and Krishna is pleased. Inquiry and submission constitute proper combination of spiritual understanding. So one inquires submissively, not in a challenging mode. And when one hears, then one gets the realization. Sometimes we just simply, if we just read book, even if we are reading, we don't get spiritual realization. But when we listen from spiritual master who is reading the same scripture, we get more realizations, or realization that which otherwise you would never get. And in this way, the spiritual master actually teaches us how to study scriptures. It's not a mechanical thing, there's more emotional and spiritual dimension to it. When you say how, it doesn't mean it's some sort of methodology or framework that one needs to learn. Well, you can learn that also, but that is not the essence or the contribution or the benediction that one receives from the spiritual master. So there are two Bhagavats Bhagavat means embodiment of the absolute truth. There is a book Bhagavat, which is Granth Bhagavat, and then there is the Bhakta Bhagavat, or the person Bhagavat. So there is a book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat. When one hears or the person Bhagavat reciting the book Bhagavat, then one gets the ultimate perfection, because you will see that self-realized souls, when they are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, it becomes nectarian. It is described that Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami, he learned from his father Vyasadeva. So Bhagavatam was there, Vyasadeva presented, but when it was recited from the mouth of Sukha also means parrot, it became more nectarian. Why? Because he himself is relishing, just like a mango fruit which is bitten by a parrot. I believe the scriptures say, it is, when the parrot relishes it, that relishment by the parrot is more nectarian. So when we see self-realized soul relishing Srimad Bhagavatam, and we hear from them, the aura or the what they are basically conveying, we can experience the emotion and transcendental ecstasy that they are experiencing. And when we experience, we also imbibe that. So that spiritual mood we cannot get otherwise. For anything to be imparted, if I want to impart something to someone else, I myself should have it. I cannot give something to others which I myself don't have it, right? It's just a very basic concept. It applies to material things, it applies to spiritual things. So the book Bhagavat, the book or the Granth, though it might have different descriptions, and sometimes it also might describe in detail different ecstatic experiences of devotees or of the Lord himself. But anything that you put into words, right, does not fully capture the experience, right? Because sabda is how the scriptures are communicated, but sabda in itself does not translate into the entire experience, right? No matter how verbose one is in describing those emotions, it's not same as experiencing it, right? So the experiential dimension one gets when a self-realized soul who is reading that Srimad Bhagavatam, and one is experiencing those ecstasies. And when we are in that presence of such a personality and are listening to it, then we are also affected by it. It is contagious. And then we can also slowly develop that devotion in association of such self-realized devotees, which one cannot get if one is reading books on their own, right? So yeah, even the most perfect of all knowledge is in one sense imperfect, in the sense that words can only describe so many things. That's why you have so many sayings like a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? But again, picture is two-dimensional, right? It appeals to your sight, but then what about other senses? The full experience is the experience of the eyes, the nose, right, the tongue, and then finally emotions. In all of these is not material emotions, but there could be genuine spiritual emotions that one can experience in the association of devotees, right? So in this way, listening or studying book Bhagavat in the association of pure devotees, one can make progress. So the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat, both are important. Also, Prabhupada used to say, well, person Bhagavat in one way is more important, because suppose I misinterpret the book, no one is there to correct me. But the person Bhagavat can twist your ear, and he's saying like that, but essentially what he meant is that if you commit a mistake, or one has an improper understanding, or one is not following properly, then the spiritual master can correct the disciple. Unless there is a submission, inquiries from learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master. When he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. This is a Yashya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasado. Yashya Prasadat Nagati Kutopi. The spiritual master is satisfied, the Lord is satisfied. So we gave a couple of examples how that works. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. So that's what it means by submissive inquiry means. One has a genuine desire to learn and is asking very humbly. What is contrary to that? Well, contrary to this is somebody is not genuinely inquiring. He says, oh, whatever spiritual master says, I'm going to accept. And they don't apply their intelligence. That is blind following. So that's not inquiry. Inquiry means, well, God has given intelligence. And of course, even a spiritual master that is speaking is everything is true. One should still be convinced by application of intelligence. That is a proper application of rationality. And that's why, followers of religion sometimes get a bad name, because there are people who just simply blind follow. He says, oh, you should use your intelligence. That's what the empiricists say. Why are you not applying intelligence? Be rational, right? They say like that. Yes, we have to be rational, but we don't have to be rational like the way the atheists are, where they already conclude that, well, there is no God, and they apply rationality to prove or to justify that there is no God, right? The proper application is that one is Adav Shraddha, where one accepts, even if it is hypothetically, one accepts the absolute truth of the person. In this way, then one asks some, inquires, and if it comes, and one should, through inquiry, one should be then philosophically analyze it, apply intelligence, ask counter questions, and then come to the truth. And when by that sincere process, one makes the inquiry, then one makes genuine spiritual progress. So blind following without questioning is not good. On the other hand, one must not ask absurd questions which have nothing to do with spiritual realization. Many times people, they approach sadhu and they ask questions which has nothing to do with spiritualities. They might ask questions about how to get some material benediction, how do I solve this problem in life, or sometimes they ask questions out of curiosity which has no value. An absurd question would be, well, how many living entities are there in the spiritual world? Well, it doesn't matter, right? How is it going to help one make spiritual progress? So one should not avoid both the pitfalls, blind following and absurd inquiries. One should ask genuine questions. One should apply one's intelligence, applies one's rationality. But that rationality should be applied in understanding the truth and not rejecting it. So if one has a preconceived notion, that also requires Adav Shraddha, right? So the atheists' Adav Shraddha is that God does not exist, and they use intelligence to justify it. But the path of a devotee is, well, let's hypothetically accept that there is God. And then I'll learn philosophically why that is true. So that is the proper application of rationality. Not only should one hear submissively from spiritual master, but one must also get clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind towards the disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiry becomes perfect. So as soon as there's an inquiry, there is reciprocation, is knowledge is imparted to a student who is submissive and is ready to render service. So this is the sum and substance of this verse. Now there are many nuances in terms of how does one know who a genuine spiritual master is. Maybe we can spend some time discussing that. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar of Instruction, different scriptures, this is described in more detail. What are the different gradations of spiritual master? How one should approach certain spiritual master, under what conditions. I'll try to pull some verses. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he mentions that one should not accept Guru out of ecclesiastical consideration. So what does ecclesiastical mean? It means that ecclesiastic refers to a religious organization. Sometimes in a religious organization, they might appoint someone as a guru. And if one is associated with that religious institution, then they might be inclined to take up, oh, this person is approved by such and such institution, and they don't do their due diligence if I should accept such individual as a guru or not, and what criteria I should use in choosing, right? If they don't have that understanding, they simply go by emotional attachments or decisions that are made by someone else on their behalf, and then that's not a proper consideration. Oh, this guru is very famous in this religious institution, let me take initiation from him, right? Then one can be cheated if one has not done the due diligence. Just like there are so many corporations, right? And they might be registered institutions with, say, Security and Exchange Commissions, right? They're following all the government guidelines. They are properly filing their annual, quarterly reports. And in this way, it is a bona fide business which is approved by federal authorities. But that does not mean I will go and blindly invest in any of this institution, because they are all following governmental regulations. If I don't do my due diligence, what will happen is I might invest in a company that might go bankrupt tomorrow, right? So similarly, just because something is approved, authorized, one is not the onus to make the choice of whether this person is worthy or is capable of delivering me. That onus still lies on the disciple, and for that the disciple needs to have some basic understanding of what the truth is, or who a genuine guru is. Otherwise one can still come to the wrong conclusion. So I'm trying to find ecclesiastical, is it here? Here, yeah, this one, Adi 135. See, in this verse, Srila Prabhupada is saying, he's quoting Sri Jiva Goswami, is one of the 6 Goswamis. Jiva Goswami advises that one not accept a spiritual master in terms of hereditary or customary social and ecclesiastical convention. One should simply try to find a genuinely qualified spiritual master for actual advancement in spiritual understanding. Sometimes, there are Jat Gosais or caste Goswamis. That means the father is a guru and the son will also become a guru, and then, so suppose I am a disciple of such a caste Goswami, then what will happen? My son will become a disciple of the son of that caste Goswami. So I have a son, that caste Goswami is a son. I am the disciple of that caste Goswami. My son will become a disciple of his son. So in this way, such hereditary guruship is going on. So just because I am a magistrate doesn't mean my son will also be a magistrate, right? Well, my son might have a better chance and better access to resources which he can use and be qualified. But then my son has to use that opportunity and put effort and energy in becoming a magistrate, right? Similarly, just because one is a son of a guru doesn't mean that he is qualified to become a guru. But then there are sampradayas like that, apasampradayas, not bona fide sampradayas. So that is a hereditary consideration. Because my father took initiation from this guru, I have to take initiation from his son. So that's a hereditary consideration. One should not do that. Customary social means, oh, I joined this religious institution. Coming from a genuine sampradaya, everyone is taking initiation from this person. I should also take. Right? That is social, social peer pressure or whatever. Right? But one genuinely asks, oh, such person, everyone is taking initiation. Maybe they are taking initiation for wrong reasons. But if I make an inquiry and try to find out, does this person have all the qualities of spiritual master which are described in the scriptures? Is this person sincere? Does this person have ulterior motives? And then maybe that person meets all this criteria, then I can approach and then take initiation. But now what is the difference? Well, I am taking the initiation after doing due diligence for right reasons. Others might have taken initiation without due diligence, and for ulterior motives. Even one can approach a bona fide spiritual master without sincerity, but then they might not make much progress. But if we do our due diligence, we can make sure that this person is someone that I really want to take initiation from and accept instructions from. Right? So it is important to understand what those descriptions are. Similarly, ecclesiastical conventions. So ecclesiastic refers to religious organization where different mathas or different institution, they might have their own set of gurus. Okay, you can take initiation from any of these gurus, but and just to be recognized in the society, one simply takes initiation. Oh, if I don't take initiation from such and such individual, I won't have any position or even acceptance within this society. That's a wrong reason. So because of, or the fact that I say just because it's approved by the religious institution, everything should be fine. I don't need to do my due diligence, because just like I don't need to do my due diligence in where to invest my money, right? If it is approved by federal authorities, right, then there is no then one might end up investing in corporation which might go bankrupt the next day. So in this way, there are different understandings that one needs to come to conclusion before one comes to the conclusion. Then there are different spiritual masters described in Nectar of Instruction, which is another scripture, Updesamrit. I believe the 5th verse describes different gradations. One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation and is engaged in the worshipping deity. One should associate with and faithfully serve the pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of propensity to criticize others. So there are devotees of 3 different levels: Kanistha, Madhyam, and Uttam. Kanistha Adhikari is a neophyte devotee. That means the faith of such a devotee is not firmly fixed. Such a devotee might think that the Lord only resides in the deity, in the temple, nowhere else. Or, they might have faith in Krishna in a genuine process, but if somebody comes and says something or counter challenges, then their faith is easily disturbed. Is not philosophically convinced. So Madhyam Adhikari is one who is at least philosophically convinced, is learned in scriptures, and his faith cannot be disturbed. A Madhyam Adhikari is on the right process. His faith is not disturbed. He is not fully self-realized yet, but is on the right path. And Madhyam Adhikari can make distinction between who is a Kanistha or a neophyte devotee, who is Madhyam and who is Uttam. That distinction a Madhyam Adhikari is able to make. And so a Madhyam Adhikari is compassionate towards the neophyte devotees, associates with other Madhyam Adhikaris, and takes instructions from Uttam Adhikari. Kanishta Adhikari, on the other hand, thinks, oh, I am pure devotee. He is actually at the lowest level, but he might think, oh, no, I am a good devotee. Others are not. Uttam Adhikari has completely opposite vision. Uttam Adhikari is actually self-realized. That's why he's Uttam. But he genuinely humble that he thinks, well, I am not a devotee. I am really not a devotee, but others are devotees. Everyone else is a pure devotee, I am not. Kanishta Adhikari thinks no one else is a pure devotee, only I am. So if you want to make genuine progress, we take initiation from a Uttam Adhikari. That is recommended. It's in the purport later. Srila Prabhupada mentions that if one takes initiation from Kanishta Adhikari, one can take, but one won't make progress beyond that neophyte level. He will also remain a neophyte. At least one should take initiation from Madhyam Adhikari. But if you want to make ultimate progress, one should take initiation from an Uttam Adhikari, Guru. An Uttam Adhikari or a highest is the highest devotee who is very advanced in devotional service. I think it's a very long purport. You can read it, but let me see if you can find that particular line. Maybe I should do a Control F. I think it's further down. But I already conveyed the essence of it, is that, yeah, if one wants to make a genuine progress, one has to take initiation from here. A neophyte Vaishnava or Vaishnava situated on intermediate platform can also accept disciples. So Kanishta Adhikari can accept disciples, the Madhyam Adhikari can accept disciples. But such disciples must always be on the platform of Kanishta. That means they won't make progress beyond the neophyte level because their guru is also at a neophyte level. In this way, they cannot advance very well towards the ultimate goal of life under his insufficient guidance. Therefore, a disciple should be very careful to accept an Uttam Adhikari as a spiritual master. So in this way, there are different instructions given. There are other verses in Srimad Bhagavatam which say what is the qualification of a guru. As I said, a guru is well versed in scriptures. He is himself convinced about the conclusion of the scriptures and is able to convince one's disciples about those conclusions and the process by which one can achieve the goal. So long purport, I think it's an important topic, so I wanted to spend enough time. Though we only covered one verse, it's already 7:31. We'll take a pause to see if there are any questions. Okay. Looks like no more questions. In that case, we can conclude today's class. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.